Okay, we are live.
Hello.
Live on the internet. At
On
least
the World Wide
the
Web.
World Wide Web.
Spider-Man joke.
World Wide
Hello,
Web.
world.
Hello.
Welcome back to Nats Talk on the go.
This is a weird but comforting feeling all at the same time.
Are we gonna get in people's podcast feeds tomorrow, or
Nope.
do we not even know? Okay,
Nope. It's
perfect.
I figured we'll take the whatever the recording is and we will. Oh, that's right. Now that I
Slap
think
it on
about it,
YouTube.
so it's recording on YouTube right now. So this exact thing from what we're saying right now through the end of the show will be available for people to download and watch on YouTube tomorrow.
I'm fine with that.
I am plenty fine with that. It is nice to be back talking about baseball. Who'd have thunk that I would have been the one that was like, "Hey, you want to do a podcast?"
It was all your call, which I love you so much for.
Because that never happens.
Nope.
You,
It didn't even happen when we were recording, like, for real.
No, I know. You were totally different, Which I just after yesterday, I was feeling it. I was ready. Little time off, and now I was ready to get back and talk about some playoff baseball.
Playoff baseball. Which your boy was in attendance.
I know. I am super jealous of that, for the record. But I was watching here at home, and it was lovely. It was lovely.
Do we want to just, like, what do we want to talk about? Like, obviously we're going to go into detail about last night's amazingness.
Well, I think it's important, like, to actually think and talk about, like...
Do you want to do context?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, man. This is great.
We're just right back to it, my friend. Right back to it. Feels nice in all the right places.
Oh, man. Title of your sex tape.
Yeah, thank you. I just served that one up on a silver platter for you.
Yes. Title of your sex tape.
Yeah, I do think we have to contextualize it for sure, because, like, there's so much that should not have happened. Like, so many things that, like, good and bad should not have happened last night, and the lead up into it that just was shocking. Absolutely shocking.
Yeah, I remember back in May, the Nationals were 12 games under 500, and I was texting with some good friends, Ryan Sullivan, Mr. Certified Agent / former Nats GM, Baron of podcast.
/ just general rockstar.
And I just said, I don't see a 600 winning percentage team for the rest of the year in the existing club. I just didn't see even a glimmer of it for more than maybe a week or two. And the Nationals went ahead and played .680 baseball from May 24th on, which I believe was a game and a half or a half game better than the Dodgers over the last 112 games of the season. So I didn't see it happening at all. I was calling for Davies' head last year.
Oh, yeah,
and
you and I both, right?
I said, if June 1st, the Nationals are under 500, then he's gone. And at the time, the Nats suffered a 4-game sweep at the hands of the Mets, the New York Metropolitans, that writers, reporters, columnists, everyone was like, yeah, got to make a change. It's just not working. And, I mean, how tired were we of the constant, there's a good ball club, I trust my guys, they go out there and play hard every day. The constant positivity, which by October 2nd, 2019, as we record this, like, it's comforting. And the players have spoken about how much that consistency and that positivity has really changed, which, I mean, I'm a dumbass anyway, but that made me feel even worse.
Well, first of all, not true, but it's incredibly valid and true to when you look at I was saying a lot of the same stuff that you were about the fact that the way the Nationals were playing and not playing for Davey, it was just a joke at that point, and I quite honestly couldn't believe that they. That there was any chance, not only that they could play 600 ball for the rest of the year, but like that they wouldn't finish just above the Marlins, because how could you think that with the way that things were going at that point? I mean, it wasn't a week, it wasn't 2 weeks, it was the first 2 months of the season that they were dreadful. I mean, they were just an unwatchable baseball team.
Yeah, it was dreadful. The little things were not happening.
Right.
The hashtag the little things. Base running was a disaster. Outfielders throwing to the wrong bases. Infielders throwing to the wrong bases.
Yeah, and the obviously that's without even getting into what the bullpen's been doing, but was doing at the time. But it is amazing to see what just a little bit of confidence in playing through it. And that, as much as I don't want to do this, I'm going to. You have to give Davey just a little bit of credit here, because they, through all of the terribleness that happened, he did somehow he made some sort of impact to help that team get through that. And I think there are probably players that deserve more credit than him, but he is part of that mechanism. Which I think is pretty impressive.
I 100% agree, and it pains me because I still think he has a lot of issues overall. But at the end of the day, he led the team to I can't even think of it, 70-something, 74 and 30-some record over 112 games, which is just incredible.
Yeah, and some guys were able to kind of figure it out, and certainly the bullpen got better, although not good, but better, and that's all that we can do. But I was really impressed with the fact that things looked so bad at that point, and going into last night, not to skip too far ahead, but to think about how bad it was for that period of time. To think that last night could have happened and lost is staggering, let alone the fact that a loss was not in the cards. That is even more staggering.
I mean, the team went from 12 games under 500 to 23 or 24 games over 500, hosting the wild card game. And just a real quick side tangent, the wild card play-in game, whatever you want to call it, best thing baseball's done in the last 10 years.
No question. Yeah, I have thoughts about ways that I would like to make it a little bit better, to be totally honest, but and really it would just involve and I'm glad that it didn't work this way, because it was a huge advantage to the Nats, but I think that the roster you pick for your wild card game, you have to take into the DS, right?
Interesting. Why?
Because there should be a disadvantage to not winning the division, and that should be it. I don't think there's enough of a disadvantage to being in the wild card game, and I think that the lack of time off and everything else actually ends up helping the team that it's supposed to be a disadvantage to.
Okay.
That's just, I as much as I love seeing the random lineup construction, and part of the thing that makes it great is the fact that you could potentially see Scherzer and Strasburg pitching in the same game. I'm there for all that, but my only thing is that I would like to see that disadvantage play itself a little bit more to the wild card teams.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree. I mean, I get what you're saying for sure, but I think having to use, right now Max isn't available till Sunday when the Nats return back to DC for Game 3, which by all accounts they could be down 0-2, they could be up 2-0. I think the fact that they had to use their quote-unquote ace in the wild card game, I think that's a disadvantage. Let
Yeah,
alone
good point.
having to play a wild card game, have a glorious celebration, and then catch a 12:45 flight for 5 hours out to Los Angeles, work out tonight, and then have to play a game tomorrow. I mean,
Yeah, you're right.
that's a lot. So I think the disadvantages are for sure built in, but I think, and we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit ahead of talking about the game, but I think that the lineup that the Nationals picked for game 163, wild card, whatever you want to call it, I think it actually works out pretty well for the Nationals, that they're going to kind of roll into game one in good form, good shape, good momentum, that I don't think that their performance is really going to detract at all from what it would be if they had, 4 or 5 days off, which hasn't worked out too well in the past for the Nats in the past. So,
Well, right, and that's kind of the thing that I'm looking forward to most is seeing what they're able to do, without all that extended time off. I mean, they had the game on Sunday, Monday off, play Tuesday, Wednesday off, play Thursday, and yeah, with the travel and stuff, that certainly gets exhausting. But they've been doing that all year. I think the hardest thing is, and we've experienced this, 4 or 5 of the last how many years, is that extended period of time off where then not only that, you weren't really playing for anything for the last couple weeks of the year, because at the time the Nats were so many games up in the division that the last 2, sometimes 3 weeks of September were completely irrelevant.
Right. Which, if you look at the Dodgers right now, they haven't played a meaningful baseball game in a month.
Yeah, exactly.
They won their division by, I want to say, 15 games.
Which is definitely something that, we're familiar with in DC, which is kind of, an embarrassment of riches, right? Like, oh, we've been just putting divisions away that easily. But I think the fact that the Nationals played in a much more competitive division than they've played in ever, really was a huge advantage to them, right? I think that now that they're coming in, everything's clicking, right? Like, not only that, but, you have Anthony Rendon putting up a career year, a year that was already incredible, right? Like, he's had so many incredible years that he put up a career year. Trey Turner put up a career year. Juan Soto had an incredible season. Like, so many of those guys that were able to step up. And so many have put streaks together to be able to put them into this situation where, you're confident putting. It's not like, oh, hey, you've got 8 guys playing every day, and then you hope that you could put some bench players up. Like the number of rosters that were lineups, that were put out every day, and the differences between them, and to still be that productive was kind of remarkable.
Yeah, I think top to bottom, the Nationals have developed a 25-man roster that will rival even, the 104-win Dodgers in a playoff series. I mean, the latest odds I saw, the Dodgers had a 50.7% chance of winning the divisional series against the Nationals, who are a wild card team that, up until a week from now ago, when the Nationals clinched, I mean, there was still some, hesitation whether the Nationals would even play the wild card game at home.
Right.
And you've seen contributions all the way down the lineup, like you're mentioning. I mean, yes, Trey Turner missed 30 to 50 games. I can't remember exactly how many with a hand injury, but, outside of that and the little recovery time, he was an MVP candidate. Rendon is going to finish third in the MVP. Yan Gomes has come on at the end of the year once Suzuki, who's had a career year himself, got injured. Asdrubal Cabrera came out of nowhere in the end of the year. I believe he had more RBIs than he had games played as a National, which is absolutely incredible. Ryan Zimmerman, outside of injury, I believe he put up a 300-plus average in September. You've got Victor Robles, who I believe deserves to win the Gold Glove for center field. I don't know if he will because he's only 21 years old, but he far and away leads the league in runs saved as an outfielder. Juan Soto, obviously you mentioned. Adam Eaton's been fantastic setting the table at the top of the lineup. So, I mean, top to bottom, it's a fearsome lineup, to say nothing of Max Scherzer, who has not been the same pitcher since he came back from injury, but we all know what kind of pitcher he can be. Steven Strasburg, who I believe is going to finish top 3, maybe top 4 in the playoff. Patrick Corbin, who's been devastatingly good, who's been also a quiet, better than a 4. So, you know, you're going into an NLDS with a lineup that can play against the best of them, which is why I think this team shapes up far better in a 5 to 7 game series than they do in a 1 game playoff, which they won in a very dramatic fashion.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you're saying, and I think that the one point that I want to make is, you know, you're right. Anthony Rendon, probably a top 3 MVP candidate, and one of the things that I want to mention, not only that, but you have Juan Soto, who there was a lot of concern about his sophomore slump, and I think to really no fruition at all. He had an incredible season. I mean, if you have any complaints about Juan Soto's season, you weren't paying enough attention. And then you have Trey Turner, who, like you said, played in 122 games and still was a top 26 Fangraphs FWAR player in the NL. So even by missing 40 games, Trey Turner hit almost 300. His on base was above 350. His WRC plus was 117, and this is a guy that has, I think, struggled at times to be consistent offensively. And he while he was playing, he did that. His strikeout rate was a little high, his walk rate was a little low, but he was hitting enough and getting on base enough overall that it didn't really matter. And a guy like that who was able to hit 19 home runs on the season at shortstop, it's another step to create the depth in that top 8 that we've been talking about. And not only the top 8 that they've had, but they've been able to interchange so many people into different roles throughout the course of the year. Like you said about Cabrera coming in at second base when Dozier was struggling a little bit, and then when Matt Adams wasn't hitting all that well and Zimmerman was on the bench, then you had Howie Kendrick just continue to do Howie Kendrick things.
Unbelievable year from him, for sure.
I mean, it really insane, and you can't say enough about the outfield. I mean, between Soto and Robles, it's insane, and then to be able to add Eaton and then have the depth of some of those other guys behind it, it's kind of insane. And I don't really want to talk about this particular player very much or at all in this episode, but it's amazing to me. As much as it's been frustrating, with all of the narrative around Bryce, it really is shocking to me how little he was missed in the lineup. It's shocking to me.
Yeah, Soto's better.
I think there's a real chance that at some point he will, overall, might actually be a better player. I mean,
I know that we all love Juan Soto.
Yeah.
For so many reasons, but it really needs to be mentioned again and again and beaten into people's heads that he's 20 years old.
Yeah.
When Ryan Zimmerman debuted for the Nationals, Juan Soto was 6 years old.
Yeah, right. Oh, man.
And he's come in here, and he hit, 34 home runs this year. He hit, over 300? As a 20-year-old. And the crazy thing about him is his defense improved as the year progressed.
Yeah,
his hitting improved. He had a rough September a little bit, but you see him hit with 2 strikes, and he's a hitter.
Right.
He chokes up. He hits the ball. He's got fast hands. He's 20 years old. He is one of the top 25 players in baseball as a 20-year-old.
Right.
And, it needs to be mentioned that this is actually a thing, that he is way better than anyone thought, and he's just getting better. He is unreal good. He and Acuna are going to dominate baseball for the next 10 years, and we're going to be able to sit by and watch a great, unbelievably friendly rivalry
right.
play out.
Well, I'm glad you bring up Acuna because he's so on that same level to me for age and everything else, and it's the kind of thing that we've been looking for in, like, I don't know, that maybe I shouldn't use the pejorative we here, but like that I've been looking for in baseball, because there's so much effort put into like a Trout Harper rivalry that was just so sad. It just wasn't really obviously.
Harper had that 1 year
Yeah.
where he was better. It was 2015 when he won the MVP.
Right.
But every other year, Trout has been the best player that baseball will have in 5 generations.
Right, exactly. And so like they really, baseball in general really wanted to make that comp. And this, again, not a Harper bashing thing for me, but like there's not a comp between those two players. Like Trout is better at a level that is incomprehensible, really, for most people to understand in modern baseball. But like
I believe it was Joe Posnanski in The Athletic today was writing about the 8th inning last night, which we're going to get to very shortly, and he said that Soto, if he is able to continue close to the pace he's on right now, he's going to be a Hall of Famer by age 28.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Where Trout is right now. Trout is one of the best players in baseball history already.
Right. Like, I've always said about him, like, he could retire tomorrow and he would be inducted 5 years from the day he retires.
He would be no doubt Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Like, he's a Hall of Famer right now.
And right now, Juan Soto is on that path.
Yeah.
Like, he is entrenched on that path. When you see, as the season rolled on this past year, all the lists, players that have done X home runs, steals, batting average, and it's basically a list of Hall of Famers and Juan Soto.
Yeah, right. And I think you mentioned this, but just to reiterate the point, his ability to adjust is the thing that is so special, because it's not that he had no adversity this season. He did. It's just he somehow found a way to get over it, and that to me is the thing that is most impressive. At 20 years old.
He's 20.
Yeah.
Which makes me want to throw up.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, the Nationals used this season to get to the point where they are is absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I mean, the bullpen was the Nationals 94 wins.
We lost you on that point. Can you say it again?
Okay. The bullpen blew 29 saves.
Yeah.
And the Nationals won 94 games still.
Yeah. Do we know where that number sits? Do we know where that number sits on like the grand scheme of things? Like 29 blown saves, like 29 blown saves, and still making the playoffs. Like, how many other teams blew that many saves in general, let alone among playoff teams? It can't be many.
I want to say Nats were 5th or 6th in baseball in worst. I want to say either the mean or the median was 24. The lowest on the year was 10 or 12, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So you figure if the Nats, 9 less blown saves, that's a 103 win team.
Yeah, right, exactly. And
so I looked at it the other day. I can't remember exactly where, but I want to say it was 5 or 6 worst in baseball. The mean or median was 24, and the lowest was around 10 or 12.
Yeah, and that to me is the biggest adversity they overcame. I mean, the fact that they were even able to remain competitive with that disastrous bullpen was something incredible to me.
Yeah, with Scotch tape and glue and squirrel spit.
Right, and we spent a little time earlier giving Davey credit, but this is the time where I stopped doing that. And
excellent.
And I say, in that case, in a lot of ways, I think in spite of Davey, they were able to be a little bit more productive than they probably should have been with the way that a lot of those guys were used throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, I think that's a nice way to say it, and I don't think we need to pile on.
Agreed.
If you want to pile on, just search my Twitter feed.
Yeah.
You'll find plenty.
Right, exactly. That's why I just wanted to make that point. Yeah, but you're totally right.
So, end of the day, the Nationals finished with 94 wins, even though they only had 19 after the first 50 games. And they were able to host the wild card game against the September darlings, the Milwaukee Brewers, who I don't want to say they limped into the wild card game, but they a little bit limped into the wild card game.
Yeah.
They lost Christian Yelich. Lorenzo Cain was going on fumes. I believe Ryan Braun had a calf issue.
Yeah, he had a lower body thing.
They were not feeling great coming into Tuesday, and the Nationals were coming off a homestand where they went 8 wins in just 7 days, including a 5-game sweep of the Philadelphia Phillies, which was one of the most wonderful things I've ever seen.
It really, that was therapeutic on a level I didn't understand that I needed. But once it happened, it was real great. Just the way that they ended that year gave me a level of confidence and exhilaration about even just a 1-game playoff. I was so excited about it because it just felt so different. The Nats have been lucky to make the playoffs a lot in the last few years.
7 years, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have been lucky as Nats fans. As frustrating as some of those playoff runs have ended, overall, we've been very lucky in DC watching DC baseball. But there was something so different and exciting about entering a playoff game like this, and I've enjoyed watching these wild card elimination games so much over the last 4 years that they've been. 2013, was that the first year?
It was
or was
actually
it 12?
2012.
It was 12. You're right. Yeah, it was.
Because the Nationals got screwed hard.
Yeah, right.
And we had to open on the road, even though we had the best record in the National
Because they changed it
mid-year
after they made this schedule, and then they had to, go ahead and So they got hurt by that, but it's been so fun watching other teams compete. It's been a totally different experience watching that now. Nerve-wracking to say the least, but it was exciting in a different way, and you being there and feeling the atmosphere, you could speak to it. And we texted about it a little bit last night and earlier today about just that it just felt different. Even you and I have both been to quite a few playoff games, but that it felt different to you.
Yes, quite a few for me equals 1. I had been to one other playoff
Really?
game. Yep, I had only been to one.
Really? I thought you had been to more than that.
It was, I believe, the first game against the Dodgers back in 16? 17?
16.
Whatever it was.
Yeah.
That's when I was there. And it was not a great game. And something about this year seemed different. And I've got some theories as to why. Going into the playoffs, the Nationals, the media, specifically wonderful Grant Paulson of The Athletic and 106.7 The Redskins.
Right.
A lot of fan complaints going in September. Fans aren't coming out, blah, 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 the atmosphere, yada, yada. You know what? Honestly, it's hard to get to to the game. I mean, families, it's a trek. I mean, I live more than an hour outside of DC. So if I'm going to a 7 o'clock game, I'm not getting home until after midnight. And with work, I mean, you got to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and that's pushing it.
Right.
It's really not the easiest thing in the world. So there was a lot of complaints about, the fans, are they going to show up? Is DC just going to be a kind of a lackadaisical baseball town? And then last night happened, and I don't know whether it was the way the Nationals have played for the last 4 months, or whether it's the Washington Capitals getting the monkey off of DC's back and winning the 2018 Stanley Cup, kind of exercising some demons. But the crowd was the most amazing sporting crowd I've seen in any sport I've ever been to, in person. Max Scherzer gave up a walk and a home run, and the Nationals were down 2-0 after 7 pitches.
Right.
You could have told the crowd anything, and they still, every time there was 2 strikes, every time there was two outs, they were up on their feet. They were screaming. When Max Scherzer got out of that first inning, it was, louder than most regular season games for anything.
Right.
Just by getting out of the inning down 2-0.
Right. I was going to say, and they were down, and they were still like that.
And the fans were absolutely unreal, cheering on the players, booing Ryan Braun, which I hold very close to my heart.
It's very nice. It's very nice.
But yeah, it was just, there was a confidence there. Whether it's because the Nationals have come back from a lot of adversity late in games, kind of a microcosm of the whole season, but it didn't feel anxious like it has in the past. Oh no, the Nats are blowing it again. Oh, we're not hitting. Goodness gracious, then we're just going to get quiet and kind of just wait for the pain to finally end and we can go back to our miserable DC existence. It wasn't like that at all. Like, even in the 7th inning, the Nationals were down 3-1, and the crowd was 1,000% still in, living and dying with every pitch. And it gave the players belief. Like, they're not out of it. The fans aren't out of it. There's not that anxious, clenched, this is DC sports happening again. It was, I can't even explain how it felt to be there. I was obviously anxious,
right.
But the fan base as a whole was completely 100% behind the team.
Well, I was going to say, you should look at people should look at our text threads and see if Craig was feeling the same way that the crowd was feeling. But
nope.
But we were on the same boat. That, like, it was really when it was 3-0 that it just kind of felt like that. For me, the 2-0 thing I didn't seem to bother me. And then when that home run went in the 2nd inning and Max threw a good pitch, and it still went out on a good pitch, that's where I felt a little deflated. And then when Suzuki hit what I thought was a blast that, like, ended up barely on the warning track, it just, something felt off at that point. And that for me is where things started to get a little bit more difficult to stay excited about it. But
right.
I will say that, we were watching the game and listening to the Charlie and Dave broadcast, and just from the way that Charlie and Dave were talking about the game throughout, you could feel this sense of excitement that still was there. And I don't know if that totally came out, because as I was watching the TBS broadcast, I feel like they were focusing on, like, the DC sports fans with their face in their hands shots.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of that was happening, but we were listening to the broadcast and I was like, there's so much energy coming from Charlie and Dave who definitely feed off the crowd throughout the game and throughout the season.
Right.
And I was like, it just didn't feel authentic to what was happening on TV. So
no, and one of the things I'd like to point out, the only other playoff game I went to, like I said, was against the Dodgers, and I mean, during that game, there was blue more than polka dotting the crowd. There was blue
Definitely.
all around my section. I saw a couple Brewers fans as I was walking out, but there were none in my section. I didn't see any in the section over. Like, there was not a visiting contingent whatsoever.
And let's be clear about that. Like, Wisconsin sports fans do travel, and a lot of them live in the DC area. I know a lot of people from that area because of previous life, and
yeah, you do.
But when you think about a regular season game with the Brewers, there's usually a pretty good contingent at a regular season game against the Brewers. But I think that there was this passion for DC sports fans to get to this game and a draw that I don't think we've seen before. It was different. That it felt like it to me, at least.
Yeah, it was like I said, it was the truest home crowd I've ever seen at a Nats game, no question.
Yeah.
100% behind the ball club. And the players, you could tell, they never really we're giving up. So let's get into the game a little bit more than we have.
Yeah.
So we had Max Scherzer. He gutted out 5 innings, gave up the 3 runs on the 2 home runs, but essentially shut the door and kept the Nats in the game.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with what he was able to do, and I certainly tweeted frustratingly about it at the time, and I stand behind my frustration because I think it was pretty clear after that 4th inning that he was gassed. He had nothing left, and he had lost command entirely, and he couldn't get a slider in the strike zone for his life, and or anywhere near the strike zone for his life in the 5th inning, and somehow with runners on base was able to get out of it, but he didn't have it at all. And that speaks to Max being Max, but it also speaks to Davey being Davey,
Right.
which was the frustrating part. I understand all the arguments about Davey leaving him in because if you're going to bring Strauss in, you want him for more than a couple of innings, or more than 1 inning, because I think the pitcher spot was coming up, and you didn't want to double switch certain people out at that point. I get it, but that's where you have to have more forethought, and you get Daniel Hudson up for that gap inning, and then you go to Strasburg, or you it's that out of the box thinking.
Huddy actually did get up in the 4th.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. So if your concern is that you don't want Strauss to come in and only pitch an inning, then get someone else up and bring that person in the fourth or fifth inning like Hudson, rather than bringing Scherz out, which I think even Monday morning quarterbacking it was a mistake. I think it was the wrong call. It worked out, but he didn't look good. And so, if I were to go back and do it, I probably bring Hudson in the 5th inning and then hand it to Strasburg and say, there you go close it. I think that's what I would do in that situation.
I get it. I was hesitant, but I thought Max definitely settled down after giving up that 2nd home run. I mean, I want to say by that point, the Brewers had 5 hits, which isn't really a lot. For the rest, I think,
losing you a little bit signal-wise there,
I was uncomfortable, and I was ready for a change.
You there?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
At the time, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I got you.
Good. I was a little hesitant at first. I was ready for a change, but I thought Max was settling in at least enough to get through, the bottom of the order again. And I didn't think there was a lot of solid contact, but I was okay with it, and definitely in hindsight, I think it was the right call, leaving him in 4-5 and then bringing it to Strauss. But, I mean, I wouldn't have argued the other way either. And like you said, it definitely just worked out that way, which is great. And I think as we're going to continue discussing the game, I think Davey pulled the right strings last night.
Yeah, I think as the night went on, the decision making, even as I was frustrated at the time, he made a lot of right calls, right? And I could easily go back and say, well, it turned out right, but you could do other things. I won't say that for most things going forward.
Right.
The one thing that I will say is it was clear to me pretty much at the beginning of the 5th inning that Scherzer had lost a lot of that command, and that's where I would have liked to see a Hudson come in and finish that inning out, and maybe even start the 6th and see where it goes, or whatever that case may be. That was my real main bone of contention. That was my big issue, the bone I was going to pick.
So then they got to the bottom of the 5th, and pitch clock came up, and Ryan Zimmerman came out on deck, and then the last second pulled by Davey for Brian Dozier. And Dozier got on base. Can't remember exactly how, but I think it was the right call to have Dozier in there for Suter instead of Zimmerman, for sure. I thought that was the matchup they were really looking for, and it worked out for Davey for another time last night. So good pinch hit by Davey. Obviously, the run, we didn't get anything out of it, but I thought it was the right call to keep Zimmerman on the bench, keep that threat there, because as we found out later, and as I was projecting going into the game, you want Zimmerman in there with runners on base.
Yeah.
That's where he's most valuable.
Exactly. It was a Moustakas throwing error that you were talking about that got him on base, and I do totally agree that when I saw him come out and I was like, well, I get that you want to get your best batters out. You don't want to leave guys on the bench, but it felt a little early in the fifth inning to be using Zimmerman at that point. And then when you see Dozier come out, then it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. Like, I totally saw the thought process there, and I was pretty impressed by it, if I'm being honest. It didn't turn out to be exactly what was expected, but I think that was the right move in that inning to go to Dozier, and you just want to get guys on base at that point. You want to move some guys forward, and Dozier has the capability. You don't want to go to a Zim at that situation. So I and like you said, against a guy like Sutter, who is probably the guy that you want your marginally lesser hitter to face at that point.
Yep, nope, I completely agree.
Yeah.
I thought it was the right string to call, right string to pull. Didn't work out for the inning, but I thought it was the right call at the time.
Agreed.
Some more shenanigans, some more innings played. Not a lot going on for the Nationals offense. Pomerantz, I believe he did 2 innings on 19 pitches.
Yeah, he was
against the Nats.
He was insane when he came out of that bullpen. I've always liked Drew Pomeranz a lot, but he showed something totally different in those 2 innings. He was insane.
Yeah. Steven Strasburg. What can you say? First ever relief appearance as a major leaguer, and he lowered his postseason ERA to, I want to say, 0.41 maybe? Something absolutely bananas. He came in, he shoved.
Yeah.
For 3 innings.
For me...
2 innings?
3.
3.
Yeah, I don't think anybody who knows me or anybody who has listened to this show has any false thoughts about how I feel about Steven Strasburg. I love him deeply. And watching him pitch is like the best thing that happens to me every 5 days. I still love it even all these years later. Watching him come into that game, and I wanted to make sure we didn't just brush over this to talk about the 8th inning, because Strasburg came in a relief appearance doing what he did. In 3 innings, he gave up 2 hits, he struck out 4, and he didn't walk anybody. What he was able to do was just, with no experience doing that, was special to a level that I think people, because of the 8th inning, are kind of not blowing over. I think people appreciate the fact that he was a big part of the fact that the Nats even got there at all. So I don't want to say blowing over, but with good reason, Soto's getting a lot of the credit today, right? Like with very, 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 very good reason. But the Strasburg coming in and doing that was the thing that I think people were most concerned about, whether or not him coming out of the bullpen would have been able to do that. And he has just shown time and time again that the way he's evolved as a pitcher over the course of the last 7 years, 8 years, 9 years is remarkable. He has become a true veteran. You could put him in any situation, and I think he's learned a lot of that from Max Scherzer over the last couple of years, to be totally honest. Oh, you're breaking up real bad.
He has come.
We have Digital Craig right now. Digital Craig. Nothing but pixels from Craig over the line. Oh, still no. Still got nothing. Still got nothing on you. Technology at its worst. And it's beeping. Somebody's got to hear that beeping. So we'll wait for Craig to get back, and I'm gonna drive forward on. I'm gonna drive forward on the Strasburg stuff because the thing that's amazing to me is he has been able to overcome, and it's hard to overstate, but there is media adversity when you're in a role like that, and he has in the last couple of postseason appearances has been able to overcome that 2012 shutdown stigma in a way that I don't think anybody anticipated would be possible. From Strasburg's perspective, so I gotta say I'm pretty impressed with what he did, and that's the understatement of the century. He entered a really tough spot. He knew he was going to be called on to pitch in a situation where maybe not as much was expected of him, or maybe too much was expected of him, depending on your perspective, and he somehow exceeded both expectations, and that's what's remarkable to me about what Strasburg did yesterday.
Am I still a robot?
Oh no, you're Craig again.
Hey, I kind of like being a robot. I gotta be honest. The thing that should definitely be mentioned about Steven Strasburg is that I think he's become a significantly better pitcher in the last 2 years. He's reached that ace status, but he's also become a clubhouse leader that we never expected.
Ever. Yeah.
He has always been the quiet guy, and it was, okay, Steven Strasburg, he doesn't want to be in the limelight. He's just going to go about his business and do that. But this year, especially, he has stepped up to the plate as a clubhouse leader, as a mentor to the younger pitchers, as a mature individual that I did not see coming at all.
Never.
All you have to do is look at the clinching of the playoff celebration where he's dancing with the team, and then the team just group hugs Steven Strasburg.
Yeah. Can you imagine that happening before this season? I mean, no. There's no way.
Not at all. So I think his growth has been absolutely incredible, and it's led him to this point where he says, give me the ball, I want it, because I'm going to do whatever it takes to help the team win.
Right.
Instead of just, I'm going to keep my head in a bubble and do the job.
Yeah, and like I alluded to, I think that Scherzer helped with that, but also the fact that I think now he had that longer term contract coming in to the last few seasons, and now he's into it. He feels a little bit more established. He feels more confident.
What do you think about his opt-out? He's got an opt-out after this year.
He's got one. I don't think it happens.
Oh, I don't think it happens at all.
Yeah, I don't. I would be shocked if he tries to opt out to get more money. It doesn't seem like him as a personality, and I think that what he was given was already so generous at the time. I don't know what benefit that would be for him to even try to take.
Also, he's the one that went to Scott Boras and said in the middle of the year and said, "I'm good.
Right.
Let's do a deal."
Right. Like
it was his call. So I think if anything, you're looking at a 2-year extension onto that. If you go, you're going to get 6 years somewhere, but it might not be the same amount of money. So we'll give you an extra 2 for 40.
Yeah, put a couple of years on the end, and we'll take care of your family, and you can finish your career here, hopefully. I mean, not necessarily. Yep. He might not be done by then, but that will be the goal, right? Like, so you finish your career, right. You make a bunch of money.
I think that's the most likely scenario, but just, random side tangent. So Steven Strasburg comes in, absolutely shoves, 34 pitches in 3 innings, like you said, 4 strikeouts, just an absolutely dominant performance, which we've just come to expect from him of late, and it was absolutely wonderful. It kept the Nats in the game, which led to the faithful 8th inning.
Yeah. The goosebumps I get now when you say that is something. So, Ryan Braun coming out at that point is important for a few reasons, right? Like it's a presence in the lineup. He comes out at the beginning of that inning. He's obviously not getting around all that well. After he made that catch on, I think it was the Suzuki almost home run, he just kind of was hobbled after that. And then you get into that inning, you get Josh Hader that comes into the game. That
was the whole Brewers game plan.
Get Josh Hader in.
Everything was working 100% to the Brewers' game plan.
Yeah.
Get a lead, hold it with Suter and Pomeranz, and get to Hader in the 7th or 8th, and have him do a 2 or 3 inning save. Like, that was their entire game plan, and they played it to perfection. Like, no disrespect to Craig Counsell
I was just going to say
at
that.
all.
Tons of credit to Craig Counsell, right? Because you know what? That's the right game plan. Like, it's a brilliant game plan to just...
The Nationals have done it several times, and it didn't work.
Yeah, right. And it worked exactly the way that they wanted it to, all the way up until the fact that the guy that everyone was afraid of facing came into the game, which was poetic amazingness. But
Josh Hader, in his career, he gives up 4.5 hits per 9 innings.
Yeah, that's insane. That's
that
insane.
That is the best in baseball history. So he is literally the most unhittable pitcher in baseball history.
And so, with that being said, you need a bit of luck, and the Nats got it in the 8th inning. And like, certainly there was a bunch of grinding that happened in that inning. I am not against using some baseball cliches for this inning because I think it deserves some. But you know, Robles comes in and strikes out, which is kind of the thing you expect, and not just on
strikes out on a 3-2 count.
Yeah.
Worked it hard.
Yeah, had a great at bat, exactly. And then Taylor comes in to replace Strasburg, which was I think at the time in my mind was a little surprising because again, you don't necessarily know.
Zimmerman came out on deck.
Zimmerman was on deck. You don't know, and it's part of the problem that I have with Davey is you don't really know what he's thinking, and so for me, I'm like, are you really going to not let Ryan Zimmerman hit in this game? That was my biggest thing. I thought there was a chance that was not going to happen, and then Taylor comes.
That was my initial thought as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, okay, if not Zimmerman, why is Yan Gomes not hitting? He's got your best chance to, really barrel up a baseball.
Exactly.
But the more I've thought about it since then, I think Taylor was absolutely the right choice. Obviously, small sample size, 1 for 1 with a home run and a walk against Hader. But you want a guy that can put the ball in play and has some speed that can maybe force a mistake.
I'm with you 100%. I this is the first time we've talked about this, and I thought the same thing. I was talking to some coworkers today, and as I was kind of reevaluating that whole inning, I looked at Taylor and I went, that was totally the right choice by Davey in every way. I mean, the fact that he can come in, he crowds the plate, he does get hit by pitches, he could be a little bit intimidating, which is obviously what ended up happening, but he's been barreling baseballs, especially of late. He has a good, like you said, albeit small sample size against Hader, and you got a good chance. Moustakas already had an error. The Brewers infield isn't the best defensive infield in baseball, and it was the right call. 100% credit to Davey. He totally made the right choice there.
Yeah, it was really good. Do you have any take on the hit by pitch, not hit by pitch?
I think it was a foul ball. I still do.
You think it was a foul ball?
I still do. I thrilled by it, but to me, it clearly hit the knob of the bat, then hit his hand, then came up and hit his face. I get the we're not totally sure, but when I saw it at that point, it might be my DC Sports coming out, but when I saw it at that point, I was like, oh, it's a foul ball. And replays I've seen since, it seems like it to me.
Once again, we're going to talk a lot about luck and how a lot of winner-take-all games come down to it.
Oh, totally.
But, I think that's a play where whatever they called, it was going to stand, because you can't conclusively tell me that it grazed the knob of the bat before it hit his wrist.
Well, and
there's nothing.
And that favored the Nats twice in this game. It also favored them on that play at first base, where did the first baseman come off the bag, or did the first baseman not come off the bag? I think ultimately, that I don't remember who it was at this point, but ultimately I think that they were safe, but it was close enough that it went the Nats' direction ultimately.
Right. So I think it was a hit by pitch all the way. They had to challenge. I think it was going to stand regardless. But once again, another great at bat by Michael A. Taylor. I believe he also worked the count full.
He did. He got hit on 3-2.
And so,
yeah.
You know, you got some wheels on the bases. Obviously, you got a lefty up there, so it's tough to really, take off. But then you got Trey Turner coming up, hit a home run earlier in the game, worked a good count, ended up striking out.
Yeah.
So you got 2 outs, you got 1 on. Feeling pretty low.
Yep.
At this point, to be honest.
Yep.
Not feeling the best. And like we discussed a little bit ago, you wanted Ryan Zimmerman to come in with a runner on base.
This is that
and
scenario.
Ryan Zimmerman. Yep, this is exactly what you were looking for with a pinch hitter. So you pinch hit Ryan Zimmerman for Adam Eaton, which I thought was a great call because Taylor had just come in. He can come in. I think he's got a little bit. I think he's got a little bit more range than Adam Eaton.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the arm, but he definitely has better range.
Yeah.
So I think that was, again, a great move by Davey Johnson. Davey Martinez.
We will never not do that, but it's true.
I will never not do that. I think it was a great move by Davey Martinez, and once again, you will never hear me say that again, probably.
Yeah.
But I think it was a great move, bringing Ryan Zimmerman in, and he hits a broken bat, sawed-off duck snort to center field. Michael A. Taylor reads it perfectly and goes first to third.
Yeah, and that's why you want Taylor in that situation, and not Gomes and not Zimmerman, and Taylor's the right guy for that scenario. And I was also shocked to see Eaton come out of that game as a replacement, but it's the perfect choice. It's the thing that. It's almost like Davey did it in spite of himself. Like, I hate to say that, but but it's true, and but it really truly was the perfect call. It really was.
It was a great call. And do you know what happened the second that Ryan Zimmerman touched first base? That I was screaming from the top of my lungs.
What?
Pinch hitter, pinch runner.
Oh, yeah, right. Which, that's why you have an 8-man bench, which they had, and that's why you have Andrew Stevenson, which is why he came into the game, right?
Which I was blown away, because one of my biggest issues with Davey over the course of 162 games, he never really did defensive replacements. He rarely did pinch runners late in the game. Like, I was so over the moon excited that he put in Stevenson to pinch run, because that's why Stevenson was on the roster.
That's right.
So, gets the pinch run in there. You got Anthony Rendon coming up. Runners on the corners, 2 outs, works a walk.
Yeah.
Just professional hitter, Anthony Rendon. I thought when he went, I think it was 2-0, maybe even 3-0, I was like, he's not going to get a pitch to hit.
I said the same thing.
Getting some pitches to hit.
It was 3-0, and I said, they're pitching around him. I said at the time,
lefty for Soto.
I would do the same thing. Why wouldn't you do that? Why would you pitch to Rendon, who's going to be a top 3 MVP candidate with 120-something RBIs? Why would you do that? So you pitch around him, and then they pitch to him. I couldn't believe that he actually got pitches in the zone. I was shocked.
Yep. Ended up working the walk. Really nicely done for Juan Soto. And setting the table here, Josh Hader had faced 66 left-handed hitters over the course of 2019. He gave up a hit to one of them.
Yeah, right.
And it was Joey Votto in July.
It's quite a battle.
So once again, Craig Counsell plays his hand exactly like the book says. You want the lefty in there against your dominant, one of the best closers in baseball, who is a piece of shit human person.
That's right.
But one of the best pitchers in the game.
That's right.
So Soto comes in, grabs his crotch, does the little Soto shuffle. What happens, Joe?
Oh, well, what happens, Craig, is he hits a ball to right field. And
okay. No. Where's the drama, Joe?
Oh, I'm skipping. I'm sorry. Lead me in.
You're skipping so much drama. So Juan Soto gets a high fastball.
Right.
Swings right through it.
Yeah.
Gets the ball away. 1-1 count. Hader comes back with an upper fastball.
Same spot.
And leading in.
Same
spot. I believe it was 1.5 miles slower.
Yep.
Per hour. But going into the day, Gerardo Parra had told Juan Soto, you're going to get up one pitch versus him. You need to make it count. He threw the same pitch, slower, up in the zone. Soto tomahawk chops it out to right field for what, at the time, was a bases-loaded game-tying single.
That's right. It would have tied the game, and that's what I was freaking out about, for the record. Tie game, let's get going, here we go. And then all of a sudden, poor right fielder Trent Grisham decides that, A, he doesn't want to play a ball in front of him, which, you learn that in Little League. But B, he's probably made that play the exact same way 175,000 times.
He came in hot, man.
Yeah, he did.
He came in hot.
But this is what...
He came in wanting to be the hero.
I was just going to say that. This is what playoff baseball does, and this is where the mistakes happen among players who aren't defensively elite. This is where the mistakes happen. And you're right. He wanted to be the hero. He wanted to gun somebody down at home plate and keep his team in the game, or maybe give him the win.
And for the record, did not stand a chance against Stevenson.
No, that's why Stevenson's in there. It was a poor call in general. And then on top of that, Juan Soto, 20 years old, has the presence of mind to say, I need to go to third because I want to get caught in a rundown because I need to make sure Tony scores.
Yep. He's 20, Joe.
He's 20 years old, and that wasn't something that came out like days later. It was the post-game interview, arm in arm with his father, that he was like, oh yeah, this is why I did that. Duh, who wouldn't do that? And it's like, nobody does that, Juan. You're smarter than everyone.
Yeah, the hit will go down, obviously, in Nationals history, in what I believe was the biggest win in Nationals history to date.
Agreed.
But watching a baseball player celebrate during a rundown,
like, come at me. This is it. You're doing exactly what I want.
And jumping up and down before he's tagged out.
Yeah.
It was the coolest moment. There was hugging of random people, high fives, jumping up and down, stunned, and again, going back to the crowd, I have never, ever heard any sporting event that loud in my entire life. It was deafening. And it was, when he got the hit, it was the loudest I've ever heard. And when it got by Grisham in right field, it went up 2 notches. Like, we're talking ear pain loud.
Yeah. And that's... like, that's the moment I think a team needs, like a team and fans, right? Like, you need that moment of like pure unbridled joy in an elimination game in a way that you can truly celebrate it. It's a whole different thing. Yeah,
it was, as Ken Rosenthal said on Twitter after the game, that wasn't a game, that was an exorcism.
Yeah, totally.
That was... How many times, Joe, how many games have the Nationals won on something like that?
I don't remember many.
You worked... how many games have we lost like that?
A lot.
All of them.
Yeah. Yeah. A bunch of painful
ones.
Where
you work your plan perfectly. You get to your closer. There's an error. There's wild pitches. There's freak anything happening. Like, that's the kind of stuff that happens to the Nats.
Yeah, and it's happened to them a bunch of times, most of which happened while we've been recording this podcast, / all of them. And so, over the course of the last how many years? 9 years or so? 8 years? And so...
a lot of years.
And so, that, to me, is the biggest thing. You could talk a lot about... You and I are both stats guys. You could talk a lot about how stats don't always show the whole picture, but this is kind of that scenario of when things overwhelm the numbers, and like there is a proverbial monkey on the back of a team and a fan base, right? And there's no question that we've all been dealing with that since 2012. It went from unbelievable elation in 2012 of even making the playoffs unexpectedly, and then disappointment after disappointment in the playoffs. And this is the first time in a playoff scenario where we didn't have that disappointment, and that matters.
Yep.
And,
no, it was the monkey off the back. It was the John Walton. It's okay to believe.
Yeah, exactly,
moment.
Exactly. A good reference on Cap's opening night.
That's right. It was absolutely fantastic. I'm so lucky I was there. The ninth inning, Hudson was there. Gave up a hit to Lorenzo Cain, who somehow was able to start the game, which is
right.
Unreal.
And I couldn't believe that he played, let alone played the way he did. But Hudson, the thing that was so amazing to me was all of it happened, and this is for me personally, everything happened so quickly in the bottom of the eighth inning that I don't think I realized that, like, I took a bathroom break and came back and I was like, oh my God, we're 3 outs away. Like, it happened so quickly because at that point, and Hudson kind of alluded to that.
It took 7 minutes, Joe.
Crazy.
Like, from base knock to we're down 3-1, holy shit, we're up 4-3, and here comes Daniel Hudson 3 outs away from going to Los Angeles.
And Hudson said in his postgame with FP, he kind of alluded to the fact that, like, people say that, like, you got to be calm and cool, but that's insane. Like, when you're in the bullpen warming up thinking you're about to try to keep a game close, and all of a sudden it's your job to keep a one-run game so you can save it and get your team like further into the playoffs. Like, screw your staying cool. Like, that, you can't do that, right? Like, it was really amazing to kind of watch that. And I think the interviews after that game, outside of your normal guys who only do cliches, were great because I think the win caught so many Nats by surprise that, not saying they didn't believe it, but, like, by any measure, by the 7th inning, it was bad odds. And the fact that it, like you said, 7 minutes between that time, it's really remarkable. Like, even I'm staring at the box score right now as we're talking, and I still can't believe that it happened. Like, I really can't. And it's not like a superstitious thing. It's just like they really beat bad odds to even make this happen.
Right. And this is where I'll drop my one nitpick Davey complaint for the game. I would have had Doolittle come in for Gamble to end the game.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's it. I mean, it worked out. He gave the ball a ride.
Yeah, it was close.
But
let's not pretend it wasn't.
You got Doolittle warm. He's ready to go. It's a lefty. I would have been more comfortable with Doolittle. Job got done. It's a nitpick.
Right.
I get sticking with your closer, but that's my one mini complaint.
Yeah, and a valid one. But
so yeah, it was the second best game I've ever seen in person.
First was,
and it was definitely the Max Scherzer perfect game.
Perfect game /
non-perfect game.
Yeah.
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 But no, it was surreal. The fan base showed up in a huge way, and it was a different feeling than any Nats crowd I've ever heard before in terms of the support, the confidence, and just the overall volume. It was surreal, and I'm so lucky I was there, and I just had the absolute best time. And I, as of right now, will be there on Sunday for Game 3.
Well, we got to get there now, so we'll
we're gonna get to Game 3.
Well, no, I'm saying we're gonna get to the series, Craig. Come on.
Oh God.
Come on.
I hear you.
Come on. So obviously, coming into the Dodgers won 106 baseball games this season, which is totally nuts. It used to be a lot of wins. Used to be 100 wins was like the pinnacle, and they weren't in a great division, but
yet somehow didn't lead the majors in wins.
because Houston. but so the Dodgers obviously are a formidable foe, but I think we've talked about this a little bit, and I just want to hit a couple of points real quick before we do a quick a preview of Game 1 and the series in general. So we've got Patrick Corbin going in Game 1, which is just great to me. I just want to point that out. I think it's
Patrick Corbin, who since the start of 2018 has a 0.59 ERA against the Dodgers.
Well, and
Joe, 0.59.
0.59?
Yes.
That's barely above half a run in the ERA, Craig.
Against the Dodgers over the last 2 years.
Yeah, real good.
And he came over from a division rival.
Yeah,
Joe.
real good. So he played them a bit, is what you're saying.
He played them a few times, yeah.
Once or twice. So we've got Corbin against Walker Buehler, and you might be surprised to hear Walker Buehler going, except Corbin had 14 wins this year. Buehler had 14 wins this year. Corbin's ERA 3.25, Buehler 3.26. Patrick Corbin was sixth in WAR. F-WAR this year. Buehler was fourth. There are a couple of stats here that are just staggering. Strikeouts per 9 for Buehler, 10.61. For Corbin, 10.60. What I'm saying is they're similar pitchers, Craig.
It sounds like an even matchup.
This is from the Nats' third starter against the Dodgers ace, and that is where my level of confidence comes from. I got to be really honest at this point.
Yeah. Also, I think the fact that Corbin is a lefty and the Dodgers are a lefty-heavy lineup.
Yeah, well, that is the dream of having him pitch Game 1 and a potential Game 5, is that the Dodgers are...
It's a 5-game series. Every game means that much more.
Exactly. And so being able to pitch a guy like Corbin 2 of those 5 games against an extremely left-handed lineup with all of the home runs and swings and misses and Corbin's slider, it's a pretty good situation.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
No, it's gonna be great. I'm really interested to see what the lineup looks like, or what the 25-man looks like, because obviously they went with a deeper bench and a shorter bullpen for the wild card game. So you have to wonder what it means for, Austin Voth. Is he going to be the adopted long man for the bullpen? Who do the Nets bring on, Taylor or Stevenson?
Yeah, that's a big choice. I think that the Voth question for whether he's the long reliever and whether you go with the lefty or the righty between Stevenson and Taylor is huge.
Suero, not on the 25-man wildcard roster, but is he going to be on the NLDS roster? What about Javi Guerra? So I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered with that, which we'll find out on Thursday. Tomorrow's Thursday morning.
Yeah, tomorrow morning. We'll find out real soon.
So I think there's a lot of questions. I think the biggest question I have right now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Who's your Game 2 starter?
So I spent a lot of time thinking about this. It's got to be Anibal. It has to be.
Really?
Yeah. If you're going to trust him throughout the year, what I would prefer is I want to see Anibal come in Game 2. I want to see Austin Voth in the bullpen if Anibal gets in any trouble at all. And I want to see 100% Steven Strasburg go in Game 3. That's what I want.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't...
So that would push Scherzer back to Monday, Game 4.
Game 4, and then Corbin to finish it out with Game 5 if necessary. And what I don't want is... I don't want to see a Steven Strasburg go in and come in 80% in Game 2, and then another 75% in Game 5 because he doesn't have enough rest. I would like...
What makes you think he's not going to be 100% by Friday?
I don't know that... He pitched fairly lightly, but he still has had some short rest time. That would be my worry. That I would want to see him start Game 3 and make sure he's 100% on proper rest.
Interesting.
You disagree? Hit me.
I definitely disagree. I have Strasburg without question starting game 2.
Yeah.
I think he threw 34 pitches on his normal throw day, and I honestly do not think he pitched a single stressful pitch. Yes, obviously tensions were high because of the game, but in terms of runners on base, anything like that, I thought it was a very stress-free. I don't think he was redlining. I don't think he was overthrowing. I thought he was under control the whole time. So I think all of that being said, 3 full days rest going into what is going to be a later start than normal even because it's out on the West Coast. I think it's, a 9:37 start time, East Coast time on Friday?
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to be able to tell Steven Strasburg he's not ready because he is a different pitcher than he was 2 years ago. That he's going to say, no, it's my day, I'm going.
I hope you're right. I really do. I will be surprised, but I hope you're right.
And I think having both an Anibal there to piggyback if need be, I think that's a better option than the reverse.
Well,
I think you need to give your big guns a chance to be your big guns, and Steven Strasburg is your biggest gun, and you need to actually use him.
And
because you could lose game 1, and then you're throwing Anibal Sanchez, who's your number 4, with the threat of going down 0-2 and being 1 game from elimination.
So that is my point. So actually, when I brought up this theory today with a couple of coworkers, I did say if you lose and you lose badly in game 1, I think you probably push Strauss to game 2. So I do think that is a potential possibility. But I think if you win game 1, which I think the Nats legitimately could win game 1, then I think that I want Sanchez in game 2. That's just my gut.
You are comfortable with just splitting in Los Angeles?
I don't think it'd be a split. I believe in Anibal. I really do. I really think he could win that game.
I do too, but I think it's put up or shut up. Put your best foot forward, regardless.
Yeah.
And I think you would have a hard time taking the ball away from Steven Strasburg if he's feeling ready.
My only argument is I think that Strasburg on the first home game in DC is the better foot forward than the game 2 in LA on a little less rest. That's my argument. That's
fair.
That's his best foot forward. Him starting the first home game after all that and his experience here. That is where I think he pushes forward for the game 3 starter for me.
Yeah. I hope it's Strauss. I get it either way, but I think if you got a chance to steal even 1 game in LA, you need to do everything you can to do it. And I think.
Go ahead.
I think Anibal's not going to be your best shot to do it. I think he's a good shot. I think he's absolutely great, and he deserves to be on the roster. Deserves to pitch meaningful innings in the postseason. I think if you've got a chance to really steal some wins out in LA, you need to do everything you can, and that's not everything you can.
I think that this podcast, we have disagreed more than we have in 8 years.
That's probably true.
That's amazing. It's
wonderful.
I'm here for it, though. I'm here for it.
So, yeah, we've got 8:07, 8:37 tomorrow night.
Oh, gosh. I had it up here 2 seconds ago. It is 8:37.
And Rendon, when asked about the playoff loss to the Dodgers in 2016, quote, "Do you think about your girlfriend who dumped you 20 years ago?"
Oh, God. I love him so much. Sign him now, learners.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
Hey.
Well, do you want to real quick hit that?
Yeah, let's hit it real quick, and then we'll wrap up. But I think the Nats' offer of 7 years and $210 or whatever was pretty fair.
210 to 215. Yep.
A lot of deferred, which, the learners.
Yep.
I think he'll sign for more. And I
Yep.
hope it's here.
I think so too. I think if nothing else, so we can avoid an introductory press conference at a new club, because we know how much he hates that.
Just stay where you are. Makes it easier for him.
Yeah. So I think the 210, 215 number was a very, very fair offer and more than I expected to happen in the first place.
Totally agree.
And the fact that we didn't hear, it was roundly booted, anything like that, I think it's a good sign. And the fact that, in the beginning of September, they were still making offers and still communicating and working on it, I think that's also a very good sign considering he's a Boris client.
Yeah, right.
I think the Nolan Arenado deal serves as a big red flag for teams that would be interested in Anthony Rendon's service. Yes, Arenado finished the year strong. He had, when it's all said and done, as good, if not better, a year than he's had leading into this contract extension. But he signed a $260 million 8-year extension when he was 27. Anthony Rendon's 30.
Yeah, it's a bad deal.
And there's already Colorado buyers.
Yeah, that Colorado deal for Arenado was a bad deal. I mean, it was market price at the time. I get that, but it was still a bad deal.
Right. So I think that if the Nationals want to get the deal over the finish line with Rendon, I think it's going to end out somewhere between 225 and 230 with an extra 8-year tacked on.
Oh, so you'll think it'll get up to 230, but add a year?
Yeah, I think they'll get to 220. I think 225, 8-year. I think that extra year is going to really make a difference.
Yeah.
It's going to lower the AAV, but that's the term that Arenado got and he's 3 years older. So I mean, that's got to count for something. So you're looking to sign a player through age 38, which is not great.
Yeah, right.
But I believe in Anthony Rendon's skill set. I think he's got the hands to really keep that from being an albatross. So I'm hopeful, but I think the fact that they're still negotiating is a great sign. He will become a free agent, but I don't feel the same way I did about Bryce Harper in that if he's a free agent, he's gone.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's partially personality. And I think that while Harper wanted the fiesta around him, I don't think Rendon wants that. Like he does not want that party of will he, won't he. Rendon will stay out of that fold. And I think that speaks to the Nats' advantage for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything else to add, Craig, about this very exciting and surprising episode of the podcast and NLDS?
I'm excited to be talking baseball with you again on the podcast. I'm not going to commit to anything for the rest of the postseason, but I would really love to do this again soon.
I would extremely hope that this would not be the last one of October. How about that?
Excellent. I like it.
All right, sounds good to me. Well, thank you for joining us for this very exciting episode of Nats Talk on the Go that we haven't done in a very long time. I am one of your hosts, and my name is Joe Drugan.
I am the other host, and my name is Craig McHenry.
And we'll talk to you all at some point in the future. Go Nats.